The biological poverty line. Let's start with famine, which for thousands of years had been humanity's worst enemy. Until recently, most humans live on the very edge of the biological poverty line, below which people succumb to malnutrition and hunger. A small mistake or a bit bad luck could easily be a death sentence for an entire family or village. If heavy rains destroyed your heat crop or robs carry of your goat herd, you and your loved ones may well have starved to death. Misfortune or stupidity on the collective level result in mass famines. When severe drought hit ancient Egypt or medieval India, it was not uncommon that 5 or 10% of the population perished. Provision became scarce, transport was too slow and expensive to import sufficient food, and governments were far too weak to save the day. Open any history book and, and you are likely to come across horrific accounts of of famished population, driven mad by hunger. In April 1694, a French official in the town of Beaubois described the impact of famine and of soaring food prices, saying that his entire district was now filled with an infinite number of poor souls, weak from hunger and weariness, and dying from want, because having no work or occupation, they lack the money to buy bread, seeking to prolong their lives a little and somewhat of appease their hunger. These poor folk eat such unclean things as cats and the flesh of the horses, flayed in and cast into dung heaps. Others consume the blood that flows when cows and oxen are slaughtered, and the offal that cooks through into the streets. Other poor wretches eat needles and wheat, wheats, or roots and herbs which they boil in water. Similar scenes took place all over France. Bad weather had ruined the harvest throughout the kingdom in the previous 2 years, so that by the spring of 1694 the granaries were completely empty. The rich charged exorbitant prices for whatever food they managed to hoard, and the poor died in droves. About 2.8 million French, 15% of the population, starved to death between 1692 and 1694, while the Sun King Louis XIV was dealing with his mistress in Versailles. The following year, 1695, famine struck Estonia, killing a fifth of the population. In 1696, it was the turn of Finland, where a quarter of a third of people died. Scotland suffered from severe famine between 1695 and 1698. Some, the, some districts losing up to 20% of their inhabitants. Most readers probably know how it feels when you miss lunch, when you fast on some religious holiday, or when you live for a few days on vegetable shakes as part of a new wonder diet. But how does it feel when you haven't eaten for days on the end and you have no clue where to get a next morsel of food? Most people today have never experienced this excruciating torment. Our ancestors, alas, knew it only too well. When they cried to God, deliver us from famine. This is what they had in mind. During the last 100 years, technological, economic, and political developments have created an increasingly robust safety net separating humankind from the biological poverty line. Mass famines still strike some areas from time to time, but they are exceptional and they are almost always caused by human politics rather than by natural catastrophes. In most parts of the planet, even if a person has lost his job and all of his positions, he is unlikely to die from hunger. Private insurance schemes, schemes, oh, sorry, uh, private insurance schemes, government agencies, and international NGOs may not rescue him from poverty, but they will provide him with enough daily calories to survive. On the collective level, the global trade networks turns drugs and foods into business opportunities and make it possible to overcome food shortage quickly and cheaply. Even when wars, earthquakes, or tsunamis devastate entire countries, international effort usually succeeds in preventing famine. Though hundreds of millions still go hungry almost every day. In a most country, very few people actually starve to death. Poverty certainly causes many of other health problems, and malnutrition shortens life expectancy, even in the richest country on earth. In France, for example, 6 million people, about 10% of the population, suffer from nutrition insecurity. They wake up in the morning not knowing whether they will have anything to eat for lunch. They often go to sleep hungry, and the nutrition they do obtain is unbalanced and unhealthy. Loss of starch, sugar, and salt, and no enough protein and vitamins. Yet nutritional insecurity isn't famine. And France of the early 21st century isn't. France of 1694. Even in the worst slums around Bilbao and Paris, people don't die because they have not eaten for weeks to end. The same transformation has occurred in numerous other countries, most notable in China. For millennia famine stalked every Chinese regime from the, from the Yellow Emperor to red communists. A few decades ago, China was a byword for food shortage. Tens of millions of Chinese starved to death during the disastrous Great Leap Forward, and experts routinely predicted that the problem would only get worse. In 1974, the First World Food Conference was convened in Rome, and the delegates were treated to apocalyptic scenarios. They were told that there was no way from China to feed its billion people, and the world's most populous country was heading towards catastrophe. In fact, it was heading towards the greatest economic miracle in history. Since 1974, hundreds of millions of Chinese have been lifted out of poverty, and though hundreds of millions more still suffer greatly from privation and malnutrition. For the first time in its recorded history, China is now free from famine. Indeed, in most countries today, overeating has become a far worse problem than famine. In the 18th century, Marie Antoinette allegedly advised the starving masses that if they ran out of bread, they should just eat cake instead. Today, the poor are following this advice to the letter, whereas the rich resident of Beverly Hills eat lettuce salad and steamed tofu with quinoa. In the slums and ghettos, the poor gorge on Twinkie cakes, Cheetos, hamburgers, and pizza. In 2014, more than 2.1 billion people were overweight compared to 850 million who suffered from malnutrition. Half of humankind is expected to overweight by 2030. 2030. In 2010, famine and malnutrition combined killed about 1 million people, whereas obesity killed 3 million.